Hi, welcome back. This is Gary with another video for Perfect Parallels CourseForge package. I've had a couple of requests on the Perfect Parallel forum to do something regarding greens and how I do the terrain work and the elevation on and around the greens. So that's what I'm going to try and do today. Normally I have to say that it takes me 2 or 3 passes before I get a green complete, so you know this is going to be on the fly and I can't guarantee it's going to be 100% how I would have it in the end, but hopefully this will just show you the process that I go through. So we're going to do this hole here today, and this is the par 5 5th on my new course. So a little bit about the hole, just to sort of fill you in with the strategy of it and partly the reasoning behind how I'm going to make the green as it is. You're driving up to this area here. You've got these 2 bunkers guarding the right hand side, but as you can see, the right hand side is going to be the better approach into the green because you're going to be running down the green from here. If you find yourself up on the left where the fairway drops, it sort of tilts downwards and pulls you into this little sort of lower area here. You're going to be coming, your second shot is going to be coming up over this mound, and then you're going to be coming across the green. So, and that's why I've put this runoff area down the right hand side of the green to catch anything that comes over too far, and also there's a little runoff area behind the green as well. So what we'll do now is we'll go in and have an actual look at the green, and what I've done is I've completely flattened it, so I'm going to basically start again. Let me just turn these things back on. That's a little thing, I don't know whether you know with that or not, but this little button up here, this can turn off. If you click the arrow, you can toggle off all of your animated materials and your skybox and your fog. So when you're up here somewhere, if the fog's on, it may be more difficult, but if you turn it all off, it's a lot easier to see what you're doing. So right, so as you can see anyway, this is I've completely flattened this area out here. So this is where I'd normally start my elevation work in and around the green. So the first thing that I pretty much do on every green is I raise it slightly up so it's higher than the approach, so it's higher than the fairway around it. So I find that most greens do that in real life, and it gives it a little bit of interest, and also it gives you somewhere to work your bunkers in as well, because most bunkers around greens are on slopes up to the green. So if you pull your green up a little bit anyway, that helps. So I'm just gonna pull it up a few notches. So first off, I'll make an elevation here with the mound tool, and then I'll get this flatten tool and I'll just select that height, turn up the opacity a bit, and like literally just pull the green up to that height. So, and then we'll just rebuild it. So that's the first thing that I do. You can see there that I've just raised the green up a bit, equally raised it up because I want this runoff area to be sloping down. So the next thing I'll do is I'll just smooth around this area here a little bit. Just smooth it quite a bit, and then I'll probably, if I turn off the actual overlay, I can have a look, see what I'm doing. So just drop this down. I normally work around about a 2 on the opacity, and just kind of just pull some of this down with the shift key. So at the moment I'm just doing the basic bits and pieces, just pull this down a little bit for the bunker, and as you can see you've got a little run, it's not a runoff area as such because you haven't got any fairway running off, but yeah, so that's the first thing I would do. I'm kind of just really working on these areas. I tend to as well try and work a little bit in sort of channels, so I'll try and explain that. So I'll run channels off here like this, So you're not just getting a flat elevation across the whole thing, you're getting a bit of a, and I might even run some off the back there, just so you're just starting to get some breakup in the slope, so it's not just a flat slope running off. So if I build that again, you'll see, hopefully, that you'll start to get these sort of little channeling bits and pieces. So it's not just a flat there, you can probably see better there with these ones running off. So it's not just a one flat slope. Probably raise this up a little bit here because it looks a little bit too deep and too obvious. So raise that up, smooth it off. It's just a process really of just smoothing and, you know, doing a bit of elevation, smoothing, going back, doing the elevation, smoothing. So that's the area around the green. If I give it a little, if I measure it, let's just see how far it drops. So we're dropping about 4 feet down, which is pretty good. That's okay. So I would expect that to be, yeah, reasonably good. So if you hit it in around here, you get the ball coming across the angle of the green, it's going to roll down into here and it's going to give you a chip back up. Now if I would, this is where runoffs are actually quite good, because if I were just to pull this round, so if I were to pull this fairway in around here and pull the rough in, if you hit a bad shot, it hits the green, it rolls off, it's only going to roll to here, because this is where your fairway's ending, so you've got quite a short chip back onto the green. Whereas if you put these runoff areas in, you know, this ball could run right down into this area here, which is giving you a much longer chip back across the green. So it's just, you know, and they're common features on golf courses as well. So, right, let's get onto the green. So what would I do here? Probably, first thing I would do is I would probably I'd just do a little bit of roughing out work. So I have this literally on probably 1 to start off with, and I have quite a large brush size just to get some basic work in. So I'll probably pull this over. So I'm just basically just pulling over this bit of here, so almost like there's a bump there that's running onto the fairway, running onto the green. Sorry, I like when I do this work on greens or anywhere on fairways, I want it to look like it's part of the surrounding terrain. So, you know, you're kind of pulling in these hills and these little bumps and hollows from the surrounding terrain, so it doesn't just exist on its own. You have to do it everywhere, but just in those places, in a few places. And I'll probably just put a little ridge around this lip, this bunker here, so you've got a little roll off onto the green. That's probably a reasonably common feature on golf courses. And then I'll probably, let's turn that off. I'll probably have a reasonably large dip in here, something like that, and then I'll probably drop off a little bit. So I'm just hitting shift and just lowering the terrain a little bit around there, so it'll aid the runoff area a bit. So I may raise up this back corner a touch, probably, and I might run a little, literally I'm just doing this on the fly, so I might run a little channel. So again, I'm just lowering the terrain just there, just to give it a bit of interest. So that's the first, you know, the first pass, if you like, if you want to talk about it in those terms, the first pass on it. So we'll just build these splines in and see how that looks. Now obviously it needs a lot of smoothing at this point as well, so but it's just you're starting to get some feel, so that's not too bad. So what we'll do is we'll smooth it off here. I think what I'll do actually, just grab a prefab in here. Just going to make it a bit easier to navigate around so I can see what I'm doing. So there you can see, if I turn off, you can see the start of the green, you know, the green sort of mounding, and there's the runoff areas here where I've just lowered the terrain a little so it's going to roll off. The little bump at the front from the bunker, so we've got a little raise up here, a little sort of side bit coming in here. Now what that looks really good for, it looks really quite decent when you have a green that's sort of say for instance I pulled this green round and it went off down there a little bit, and then you built the hill into the side of the green, and then you could put a bunker in there. That always looks really pretty good. So let's smooth this out. So I'm probably going to smooth this about somewhere around 14, 15, just give it a general smooth, just to get us going really. Then just rebuild that spline again. So like I say, this is the first of probably a few passes that I would do on this. And then once I've done this bit here, this major work, I'll probably start thinking about where I'm going to put flags. So I won't actually put the flags down. I will lay them here, but I'll take them off again before I build the course, because it can get a bit messy when you haven't got a whole set of pins on each hole. So it might give me the option to select difficult pins, and if there's only one difficult pin then it'll crash the game. And so, but just to look at the pins, I might just put a few in. So hole 5. So if I'm thinking like, where am I going to put a difficult pin? I'm probably going to be looking to put it around here somewhere. And then we're looking at these numbers really to see, you know, before this. So this is really the first set of pins that I've laid on using the new course forge with these little directional numbers. But what I used to do, and what I probably still do will do a little bit, is I get my tool, my measuring tool, and then I'll just sort of spin it around to look and see if it's really elevated too much around. I mean, if you look at 6 feet, 5 or 6 feet, you don't want to be any more than sort of 3 or 4 inches at the very most in any direction. So that's pretty good. That's you know, 2 inches, 3 inches. So I would say that if I were gonna put down a flag for difficult, somewhere around there would work quite well. Obviously as well, it's over the top of this bunker, so you've got no chance of stopping it if you're coming in from, you know, you're hitting your second shot in from 200 plus yards, you're going to be going past that. So that's probably a good place for a difficult pin. I'd probably look at an easy pin. 5. I'll probably look at putting an easy pin pretty much somewhere in the middle, and that's a flat spot on the green. As you can see, there's not a lot going on there. I mean, if I were doing a standard course rather than a links course, I'd probably make these greens a lot more elevated. But because it's a links course and you've got quite big greens, you don't want to be ridiculous. But equally, you can make some quite good sweeping elevations. So for instance, I might say, let's just take this off again. I might say that you know, an area of the pin, because you don't have to have the whole green available for pins, you know. So I might say that this whole back end here, if I just shift and click, and I might just make that almost like an extension of the runoff area. So if you get it slightly wrong in your approach, the ball's just going to hit this part of the green and run off. I might raise this up a tad. Equally, I could lower this here, raise this up here, and I could almost have like a natural bowl that the ball will get sucked into. So if I'm trying to put a pin, so let's say let's just build this bit again. No, there's no smoothing going on here yet, but say I put my easy pin back here, that's what at the moment that's way too deep, or there's too much angle on it. But I could put it in here somewhere, or maybe even just trying to think that whole thing sloping off. So I might, let's just give it a bit of a smooth off a bit. Let's just turn this right down. Another thing you can do is you can set your brush to 0.5, and even though it says 0, there's still a small amount of elevation work that you can, or a small amount of opacity that you can use there. So I could bring that up a tad around here, smooth out a little bit, rebuild the splines. And we could take a look at this now, and that's much better than what it was. And you know, I'm looking at, you see, if you're up here, if you land it up here where this medium pin is, you're fine, but you've only got to go that far, and then you're starting to run off, as you can see, down. Now I could put a pin down in here, sort of this area. So another little trick that you could use is you could just take your brush size down to about 5 and select this area, and you could just flatten it out, and then go in with your smooth tool and just smooth out around the edges so it's not so noticeable. And then when you build the splines again, hopefully you won't see any noticeable ridges around there, but when you actually look at the flag, you'll be able to see that you've got a flat, you're on a little plateau. So, and then you start to run off again, and here you've got a bit of a, so you've got an area here. So I could put in, I wouldn't put an easy pin in there, but you could put in another medium pin there, for instance. Always nice to get interrupted by the phone. Yeah, so you could put in a medium pin there, for instance, and you've got yourself a little plateau. Again, you could look at it with green. Sometimes I look at it where I split the green into portions. So I might say that there's a quarter here and a quarter there and a quarter there and a quarter there. And you could say that you've got to land it, you know, in the right part, and you've got a reasonably flat part around this quarter somewhere, a reasonably flat part around this quarter. I could even say, right, well, this area here, let's just turn this off. I could say that this area here, I'm going to bring down around there, so that's flat, but it should be, let's just select a slightly lower area that's a bit more pronounced. So it's flat there, but it's lower, it's dropping off into here, and then I could just smooth it out a bit on those edges where it drops, and then maybe just pull this opacity back to 0.5, go back into my height tool and just raise a few areas up and around so it's not completely flat. Smooth it out again a bit. And then rebuild the splines. And then if you look at, so if I pull in over this easy flag here, you can see that around here you've got, actually it probably would be much better if I used the measuring tool. So if I pick this measuring tool out and go from the top down to here, actually it's not, I haven't made much of a difference. So I might go even deeper. So let's try that. Like I say, I'm doing most of this on the fly, so let's pull it from considerably down here And let's just drop this area. You can't see it at the moment because it's underneath. But if I take these away, you should see now there's quite a pronounced dip down into here. So if I smooth that out considerably, just not the whole thing, but just the ridge. Just smooth out the ridge. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. Just smooth out this whole ridge area here. And then come in with my height tool, pull this down to 0.5 and just raise a little bit, lower a little bit around here, perhaps lower this front off, raise this up, and then maybe just hit shift and just flatten this area off directly around the green, around the flag area, around the hole, and then just smooth it out a little. And then we'll go back and rebuild the splines. And now you can see if I've got this flag around here, there's not much of a drop anywhere within sort of, so let's pull that up to where the flag is. If you look around 7 feet, you're pretty good most ways. But if you're slightly off, you're dropping down here. Actually, you're not dropping, you're raising a bit there. But if you're going up to this side, you're 10 inches, 11 inches. So you're going to have a sizable, if you get it wrong, you're going to have a sizable downhill put there. Equally, if I go up the top there, you're going to have a very downhill put there. And a very downhill put there. So I've kind of split this quarter of the green off. So it's flat in its own area. But if you get it wrong and end up too far out of the way, you've got you've got a very tricky putt coming back, especially as you've only got 12 feet, 13 feet to you're off the green, and even then you're dropping downhill a bit. So you could move that up a bit there, sort of maybe here, so you're more on the green. So you've got 16 feet, and you haven't got that much of a drop there, but you have got a considerable drop coming down here. So that's another way that you could approach it. I mean, I'll probably, like I said, I would probably look at this and redo some of it again. I'd be refining it all the time, so I'd definitely have this in game before I did anything with it. I'll just be making sure that it was okay. What I'll do though actually is I'll just delete these pins off, and I'll make some more medium pins for the hole, because I'm pretty sure I can do that without any issue. And I'll put one there, which is where I was going to put it. So let's put it there, say. And I'll put one I will also put one here on this difficult part where I would have had it. So we'll call that my difficult pin. And I'll stick one over the back perhaps as well. So let's put one here as well. So what we'll actually do with this one is we'll make a little bowl, a little gather area for it. Let's just turn that off. Go into here, turn this down to 0.5 and just bring the brush size down a bit and just hit shift and just not too much, smooth that out a little bit with a reasonably higher opacity. Just smooth out a bit like that, and then hopefully what we've done here is we've made a gather area. So this one, you know, the ball is going to be hopefully pulled down a little bit. So if I actually select that pin, everywhere in all directions it's dropping into that area. So just go mad, just have it there, let's say. And then what I'll do is I'll build this, and then I think that's just terrible really, I should know this, but I think in the practice mode I can select all the pins and we can have a look and see how the ball rolls into these areas. So I'll do that now and then I'll be back. Okay, so here we are in the game, and you can see now the green completed at this point. I wouldn't say it's fully completed. There's quite a bit more I would probably do on it, but as it stands, this is where we're at. So if we take a look, you can see what some of the ideas in play here. So the slight rise over the back of the bunker, I would probably lower that, to be honest. I think that's a bit high. Here's your pin that's sat in the difficult position, that's just over the back of that bunker. So you know, if you're here and you're a little short, you're going to hit this downslope and shoot on. That's sort of the idea behind that. And if you're coming in from a distance, you're never going to stop it in time. But again, that's probably slightly too high. And then you've got this 0 hole here, which is in this where we quartered the green off, or split the green into quarters. And as you can see, there's quite a rise up to the back of the green. So, you know, if you're not accurate with your approach, or you'll find yourself somewhere over the back, for instance, if you're down here in this area, you're going to have to chip onto the top half of the green probably and run it down the slope. And then we've also got these back parts here. So this is the one that I built in with a slight where the ball runs into sort of a little hole, little dip where the pin is. So you might make that one of your easier pin positions. I'm wondering if I can get the grid on. I can't, but it's that around here. I've had a look at it already, and it needs a lot more smoothing out. But you can see the idea, and then obviously the final pin, which is tucked up the back here on a little plateau, and that's probably weirdly enough, probably one of the easier approaches in if you're hitting it long, because you can run it up the green to get to here. But it's also probably about the highest point of the green. So you're going to be putting up to it wherever you go, and if you come just over the back here, you're going to find yourself with a tricky chip where you're trying to chip it back up and stop it on that plateau before it runs further down. So my process would now be test out these pins, see how they are, see if I like them. Obviously I'd be looking at putting in some more pins in the middle here. In this middle portion, I'll put some of the easier pins. I might put another medium pin or difficult pin down this side with the runoff, flatten out some areas. There may be a couple of variations of this pin, maybe one slightly here, or one just up here, just where there's a little runoff next to it on a slight ridge. And then I would go back, test them out, and then I would be going into a process then of smoothing out the whole area again, because like I said, it's a little bit it's not smooth enough at the moment. There are too many sort of slight ridges in the green, so I'd smooth the whole area out again, and then probably rebuild it and take another look. And I might look and see, you know, if the areas around the holes are flat enough, making sure as well that I try to make sure that wherever I put a pin, I don't have a runoff area. I don't have the green sloping entirely away off the green. So if I'm putting from up here, I don't want the ball to be running down and then straight on past the pin and then gathering momentum off the green. I don't really think that's fair, especially on the highest stimps. So I might put in an area here that's slightly, you know, only slightly elevated. So you're just hitting it, and then when it's gone past the pin, it's just got a little sort of backstop that's just going to hold it up from running off the green, so it's not too unfair. But yeah, so that's my process. You know, as I said, a couple of people asked me to go through it, so I have. I'm not saying it's the correct way of doing it. I'm sure there are many other people many other designers out there who have ideas that are equally as good or better. But that's just the way that I like to work, the way that I go through it. So this would be the first version of this green, the first pass if you wanted this green, and then I would go on and make some more refinements and before it's actually finished. But this is essentially now how this green will look, barring a few tweaks in the game. So hope you enjoyed that, and hope you know, if you did, then I hope you come back and watch a few more of my videos. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time. So thank you.